Hi, everybody. So I'm Melissa Knapp. I'm the Salem Family History Center Director. And thanks for all those who have already shown up tonight for our class. I'm excited to dig in and show you what we're going to do. Hopefully it'll be something that will help you as you are doing your family history research. This is a really important skill, an important part of family history. And it can be a lot of fun once you gain some confidence in it. I think that's sometimes the hardest thing. So we're going to dig in and yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the problems that we encounter, because when you start doing family history, it's not very long before you run into some snags. And unfortunately, it causes some people to kind of lose their excitement because they don't know what to do. So we want to give you the tools to help you work through those so you can get to some rewarding experiences. Okay, so one of the first steps to successful family history research is to learn to detect errors in the tree. And why? Why can't we just skip over that and let someone else do it? Because correcting errors before we do research helps to prevent time spent going down the wrong path. It's an important skill that's necessary to find your ancestors. And it's also a really rewarding experience because by doing it, it yields a lot of great fruit. Okay, so I did want to just talk about a couple of things that just came to my mind as I was preparing this. And because I feel like it's important for us all to remember this occasionally and go over these things. So when we begin working on the family tree, or as we continue, we should remember or learn, if we haven't done it before, that family search is collaborative. We're supposed to work together. It's all one tree, and it's designed to have one giant family tree that we can all fit into. And I love that. But because it's collaborative, there are mistakes, and we just have to learn to work with each other. But we learn by doing, right? So a lot of times this part of I feel like this is the rockiest part of the process sometimes, because we've got to get over these little hurdles, and it's kind of scary if we haven't done this before to try to clean things up. But I promise you're not going to break anything. We all make mistakes, and beginners make mistakes, and seasoned genealogists make mistakes. It's just part of the system because we're human, and records sometimes are incorrect, and maybe we see things incorrectly, or there's things that have been indexed incorrectly. So we just have to learn to work with the mistakes, and it works out. Even if you do make a mistake, know that it can be corrected. It can always be fixed. We can go back, and I'm gonna cover some of those things just to show you how tonight. Okay, so even though those things all the mistakes can be corrected, it is important that we use caution when changing and adding things, because it's easier to prevent a mistake and a mess than trying to correct it. It just saves us time if we can try and be careful from the beginning. One good piece of advice is to never guess. Don't assume something. Always use good judgment. Verify your changes first. Cite your sources and explain the changes you make so other people understand why you make a change. Start with something small if you've never done this before, and push yourself just outside of your comfort level. So don't try to maybe fix a family that's a huge mess if you've never done this before. Maybe start with something small, like standardizing some dates. We'll get into that. And just let it grow. Just know that you're going to get better the more that you do and the more experience you get. But just start with something that is just outside of your reach of what you've already done. Another thing that I really believe in is when things get confusing in the tree is, and I'm trying to fix something, or find something, is to say a prayer and ask for the Spirit. I know that the Spirit will help us to be able to decipher what is true, what is right, and what is wrong. And sometimes we have to walk away from it for a little bit and come back, and things can seem more clear. And there's a process and all of that. So you kind of just have to learn how the Spirit speaks to you. But I do believe that the Spirit is very present in this work. I know that. And the Spirit will be there to help you. Also, if you get into a bind, ask for help. There's Temple and Family History consultants that are more than happy to help you. If you run into, a problem that you can't fix on your own, that's why we're here. Now this one's kind of funny, but I said, remember that no one owns their ancestors. However, there are some people I think that would disagree with that statement, because sometimes you'll find a person page on FamilySearch where someone has left a life sketch that says, do not edit this person, do not touch them. And I would just challenge everyone to not use those tactics, because even though I realize that there are some people that have worked really hard to get things just right on their ancestors, and we appreciate that work, that we have to make room for people that are coming in and are trying to learn as well. And we need to be kind to those who are beginners, even if they make mistakes. It's okay to message someone and maybe say, hey, I just wanted to tell you, like, I have some information here. I saw that you added this, but actually this is incorrect. I think that's just fine to help people understand maybe, what is correct if they're a beginner or something like that. And I think as long as we do it kindly, then that's great. But I have actually talked to many people who were just getting into trying to do family history, and they made a mistake, and someone on FamilySearch sent them a really rude message. And it just bruised their ego so badly, and they just felt so bad about it that they haven't done it since. And we know that that's not what the Lord would want. This is his work, and he wants us all to be involved. And we can't get to a place where we have skilled people if we don't let them try, if we don't allow them to make mistakes. So we just need to remember that we're all beginners once, and that we can all work together and do it kindly. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to talk about is, so this is a person page in FamilySearch. And one of the things that is great to do when you go onto a person page is look on the right side here and look for these messages. So this is telling us we've got a missing standardized burial place. And then we've got some record hints, which we like to call those manna from heaven, because those are the records that are just raining down. We didn't even have to go out and find them. They're not always correct. You definitely have to check them. Sometimes it could be a similar name. However, a lot of times they are for this person. So it's so great if they pop up. And that's what we want. And that is why we're going to talk about what we're going to do tonight, because if we get everything working right in the tree for our ancestors, we are going to get that manna from heaven so much more easily and efficiently, because all computer systems have their own software, and it's built in a certain way. They have standardized ways of doing things that they like and that the computer system recognizes. FamilySearch's system is different from Ancestry, but so you want to try to do the things the way each website prefers. And so I'm going to go over some of that so you know what FamilySearch, how FamilySearch is set up and what it prefers. Okay, so this research box, like I said, it's got some hints and suggestions. The same icons are used in the help box, and it's a good idea if you can deal with these things before moving on to anything else, if you can clear them up or attach them and all of that. We're not going to go into actually attaching records tonight, but that's the goal. We're trying to get there, so it's important to bring that up. Okay, and you'll see these little icons mean the red one means there's some kind of data problem, and it will tell you what it is. So like for this one, it's the burial place that needs to be standardized. And I'll explain that a little better. The record hints and research suggestions. Okay, so let's talk about these little warning things, the data problems. So if you see a little red arrow, that means we need to fix something. And why? Because it's not, something's not right and the computer is not able to read it correctly. And when it's not able to read it correctly, then it doesn't know, it's not able to suggest records as well, because it's the algorithms and things don't work out right. So with this one, we've got this Hannah Dutton, and like there's one for her that says she was born, you know, after her mother's childbearing years. So that means we need to take a look at that. You know, maybe her father had more than one wife, and maybe she was a daughter of the second wife or something. So, you know, bear in mind that it will give us hints as to what's happening. Some of the data problems are really easy to fix, like the standardizing dates and places. And some data problems may take several hours of research before you can decide how to fix the problem. And don't feel like you have to do anything that you're not ready for. You know, build up to that point. Definitely make it a goal to get there and learn how to do these things, but don't feel like you have to solve every data problem you come across. Like I said, just start small and then you get more comfortable as you go. Okay, so these are really easy. So we're going to start with this. A missing standardized birthplace. And this is the most common data problem that there is. So dates and places must be standardized so that the search engines work correctly. And you'll know that it hasn't been standardized by the little red exclamation point. And all you have to do to fix it is click one of these little edit buttons next to the one that has the exclamation point. So we clicked edit on that one. And it will bring up this message that says 13 past contributors. Sometimes it will say 2 people watching. Don't worry about that so much. Sometimes people are afraid to make changes, especially if someone is watching. But that doesn't mean that someone is watching so that they can, like, you know, pounce on you if you make a mistake. I've actually gone in and watched people, some of my ancestors, hoping that someone would have some information or find some information. And if something was added to that ancestor, I was just excited that somebody was contributing to them and I wanted to be notified. So, so don't let that deter you. Okay, there's a really easy way that you can change it. One way is just to like click on the little box there and do the space bar. If it's already got the date, and then it will bring up a drop down box, which will give you like the full date. You don't have to retype it in usually. Sometimes you do, but rarely do you have to do that, because it will just, if you just click on it, do a space, it'll bring up the options. And you always want to try and pick from that drop down menu, because that's when it becomes standardized. You can write it exactly the way the computer system wants it. But if you don't click on the option in the drop down menu, it doesn't standardize it. So that's important to remember. But it will tell you when it's standardized or not, so you know you've got it right. So like this one is not standardized, the date, but the birthplace is. So that's an easy way to just check it and see. Okay, so a couple of things to remember. Sometimes there won't be an exclamation point. However, it will also be missing this little bubble for the location. See how the death has a location? Well, we want the little bubble, because by doing that, that also helps the system. And so we just want to, even if there's not a red exclamation point, if there's not the bubble, let's go in and just try to find the standardization on that and select it. Okay, and that just pertains to some of the data problems that maybe the system didn't pick up. And sometimes you might be looking at a person and look and say, wow, like I've got their birth and christening on the same day, but in different locations. Like They might be close, same county, but not the same town. And you might wonder why. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of examining to see where that source came from or where that information came from. And, oh, sorry. Okay, by clicking on that, you'll see that it'll show you the source that is attached to that information. So like you see, it says birth, one source, christening, two source. We want to see what those sources are that are giving us that information. Okay, so the first one, the date of birth, the source for that was Find a Grave. For the christening record, the two sources were actual original christening records from Massachusetts. Now, what is the difference? We have to evaluate the reliability of the sources. So to know what's correct, it might not be that this is the wrong person or two people or something like that. It may just be that something has been put in incorrectly. So Find a Grave is like FamilySearch. It is, it runs off of contributors. Contributors put in that information, just like in the family tree on FamilySearch. But it creates a record that then can be attached to FamilySearch. So when someone puts in a birth date onto someone's Find a Grave page, we can attach that to FamilySearch. Now, a lot of times it may be correct. It may even be on their headstone, which may or may not be correct. Sometimes there's mistakes even written in stone. But if you have a record like a christening record, and there's a discrepancy with, say, something you would find on Find a Grave, then go with the christening record, because that is an actual record of the event, and it's not just a contributor that's put in that information. And this one has two records. Like, why does it have two sources? Sometimes there were a couple of different records. They had to do with the same event. Some were saved by the parish and some were saved by the county. They might be the same record or a little bit different, but they might have the same event. But attach them both. Like if you find a record for someone that has the same event twice, just go ahead and attach it, because then that tells the system, hey, this is for the right person. And we're going to attach all records to them that are actual records, so that it will continue to know, oh, well, I've got the right person. I'll send them some more. Okay, so just going back over it really quick, the quick formatting tips. FamilySearch likes the full date written out, and starting with the day, the full month, and then the year. So just like this, we would put that like 8th of February, 1961. However, if you start to write it abbreviated, it will actually give you that drop-down box. So sometimes I do just kind of type it in like FEB, and it'll just bring it up for me, but I always select the standardized date. And then the proper format is like smallest to largest jurisdiction. So for here, it would be Salem, Utah. So we've got Salem, the city, the town, the county, and the country. So we want to go from the smallest jurisdiction to the largest. And if you don't know the jurisdiction for, like, say, the time period, Google it, look it up and see. Okay, so, and when we're on a person page, even if there's not little errors or anything, we want to know what we can do to contribute, right? We want to know what's there and what's not. So even if it's not giving you suggestions, you can always look at the vital information. This is going to be a great way to know what records have been there or what has been put in by people, so we know what we're starting with. And this gives us, a quick rundown of the person's life. So this gives us their where they were born and the place, and where they died. So we just want to take a look at all of these things so that we can correct them and look for other records. Okay, so another common problem that you're going to find in the tree is things like finding people that don't seem to match their relationship. Their age doesn't match. So for instance, this one says that she was born after she was married. Gotta love that. So obviously there's an error here. We know that something's going on. So that needs some investigating. We want, in that case, go to the sources, look at what's there. I like to just take a pen and a paper, and one of the first things I like to do if I am going to work on somebody is I do like paper. So I will create a timeline. If there's a birth record, a christening record, start with that. Or if it's the first is a census record, just start with the census and try to find the very first things and build a timeline of this person's life so you can try to figure out who belongs and who doesn't. But in this situation, she has two husbands. The first one that she supposedly married, was 27 years older than her. Was that possible? Yeah, it's possible. The second husband was only 8 years older, and she married him almost 20 years later. Both of them are possible, but when you see a big discrepancy in age like that, it's worth looking at. Doesn't mean that there's a mistake, but there could be. However, if you find people that are married to someone in the wrong century, usually it's pretty safe to say that there's something wrong, and you can work on detaching those relationships. But and for this one, she's got actually two sets of parents here. So there's one set of parents where the mother is a little bit too old to be her mother. So in FamilySearch, once the mother is 52 and she has children after the age of 52, they're going to give us a little warning message. I mean, some women did have children after 52. It was possible, just was really rare. But it is an indication that we maybe need to look a little closer and see if that is the right relationship. It's just a warning that, hey, this isn't normal. It doesn't fall into the typical information brackets. So we just want to look closely and see if it's right. Now, for the second father, he's a little bit younger. He was born, he would have only been 32 when Hannah was born instead of 64. So even though there's not a mother there, we want to look and see if there's any records that can help us decide who are the correct parents. It could even be that this one was her grandfather or something. I've seen that a lot, of children being attached to a grandparent that had the same name as their father. But I also want to say too, like it's so good to take a close look at these, to analyze the information and the dates and look for the things that don't add up. However, we don't want to assume just because it's not normal that it's incorrect. So what that means is, we just have to be super careful, because when we assume, we can actually mess up things that we may have thought were incorrect, but weren't. Okay, so I have a little case to show you, the case of Molly Butler. And I want you to, as we're going through this, I want you to think about what you would think if you came across her records here. So she was born in June of 1877. And so we don't have a birth record for her, but the first record we do have for her, because there were no birth records in where she was born at that time. But when she was 3 years old, she was in the 1880 census with her parents. However, we know that the 1890 US Census was destroyed, so we no longer have that. So we don't get to see her as a 13-year-old. The next time that we see Molly, one of her records, is in the 1900 census. Now, we didn't have a marriage record available that we could find for Molly. So, so looking at this census, we see that she, in her household, she was living, her husband was Henry Butler, who was 34. Then there was her, she was 23. And then it lists 4 sons, Armstrong, who was 9, Laird, 7, Willie, 4, and Walter, 2. Okay, so I want you to think about that a little bit. We've got a 23-year-old mother with a 9-year-old child. So what would that tell you? Well, let's go to the 1910 census. Same family, But now Molly is listed as a 31-year-old widow with the following children in the home. And even though some of the names are a little bit different because census records are notorious for having errors in names, because just depending on who the informant was or who the enumerator was for the census, they may have just written it down or heard it incorrectly. Sometimes a neighbor gave the information if the family wasn't home. And so that's why names and ages can be off a lot too. But we see that Molly's a 31-year-old widow with the children. Joseph A., we assume that he's probably the same as Armstrong because he's 10 years older, 19 years old. Lloyd, 17, Wessie, 14-year-old daughter, Walter, 12-year-old son, and Pearlie, who was 10. So what seems unusual about their circumstances? How likely is it that a 31-year-old mother would have a 19-year-old son? This situation suggests that Molly's husband may have been married before her. He may have had another spouse, right? And I think it's really good to think in terms like that because we want to be aware that that was a possibility. However, before we go looking for another wife, let's look closer at the records we already have. This takes becoming familiar and really looking. If you can look at the image of what is there, you can learn so much. So the 1900 and 1910 census are actually my favorites because they ask some very important information that we don't get on the other censuses. It asks on the 1900 census how long the couple had been married. It also asks how many children the mother had to all together, and how many of those children were still living. So in this 1900 census, we see that Henry and Molly had been married for 10 years. She had 5 children, 5 of which were living. The 1910 census corroborates that information. Now it doesn't, because she's a widow, it doesn't tell us how long she had been married, but it does say, it asks the same question about the children. How many children had been born and how many were still living? So even though she was 23 with a 9-year-old child, it wasn't very likely that a 13 or 14-year-old girl would be a mother. However, we see from the records that she had, at 23 years old, she had been married for 10 years. So it wasn't typical, but it was the reality for her. And instead of detaching children, because we assumed that she can't be the mother, just by looking at what was already there, it saves us so much time because we see that, well, she was the actual mother. And that was actually my great-great-grandmother. And I have no idea why she got married at 13, but she did. And I'll just tell you, she also was a widow at 25. And they had one of the first cars in town when her husband died. And I mean, here she was, 25-year-old young lady with 5 children in the early 1900s, and women did not drive, but she would drive herself around, and everyone would tell her, you need to get some man to drive you. And she'd say, I don't need a man to drive me. And they'd shake their head and say, there goes that old butler woman, as she'd drive through town. But I love that about her, that she was a go-getter. So she took care of her family, even though she was really young and probably didn't have a lot of worldly experience. She figured things out. So, okay. So another place that we want to clean things up in the tree or on a person page is by looking at the other information here. Now, sometimes when records have been brought over or a merge has happened, the system automatically creates these alternate names. And if it's the same name as their name, like this one has Anna, you know what, you can delete that, because I have seen sometimes 50 alternate names and 25 of them were the same. It just kind of mucks up the system. We just kind of want to get rid of it and clean it up. So easy to do, just, open it up and you can delete it. Okay, here's another situation. We see this a lot. So we have Anna Maria, Mary Geiger. So why is her name in parentheses? Usually that means that that was what she was called. That was her nickname. However, FamilySearch does not like parentheses at all. If you, in fact, so we want to fix this. It tells us that we have these invalid characters for her. And so what are we going to do? Because when her name is, when she's got these invalid characters, it's going to prevent it from searching for records for her. And we want to clean that up because we want it to suggest records for her. So if we click on edit by her name, then right there, it brings up this and it gives us this message: the following characters are not allowed. One thing that it does allow are quotation marks. So if you want to make it clear that someone was called Mary, you know, that wasn't actually in their name, but it was their nickname enough, and that name may show up on their records, put it in quotation marks rather than parentheses. And the computer system actually accepts that. So that fixed that one. Okay, another thing that we will come across sometimes are incorrect records and sources that have been attached to someone. So this is on a person page, and we're looking at their sources. And let's say sometimes you might see someone that's got 2 1850 censuses attached to them. That's kind of a red flag. Lets us know that, yeah, that's probably one of those or not them. And when you've got similar names, that happens a lot, especially a name like James Martin or something. Might be easy. It's very possible that we see 2 James Martins. So this is actually pretty easy to do, like, especially for this one, you can see that like there's this record that they weren't really sure what the last name was. So they've got that star there, this little wild card. So, but if we look at it and we're like, oh, these family members are not correct, this is not the right record, we can just detach it. We click on it there in the sources and click detach. However, we want to write a good explanation explaining why we detach it. That helps other people. Like if someone did attach it, it lets them know why we took it off, but it also prevents other people from reattaching it because it'll have that message. And if that record comes up again and somebody goes to attach it, they'll get to see that the record was detached and why. And they might say, oh, well, somebody already figured this out. Okay, that's not correct. It just saves work for all of us. And you would just, so you just then put the explanation there and click detach. Okay, one of the scariest things for most people in FamilySearch is cleaning up duplicates. So why do we have duplicates? Well, it's a collaborative tree, and people get entered into the system in a lot of ways. People enter people in all the time from new records, and things like that. But when FamilySearch was initially created, the family tree, it had a combination of several resources that made up the initial tree. So it was a conglomerate of several databases, such as the ancestral file, pedigree resource file, new FamilySearch, the IGI, and many others, other pedigrees and things like that. So there were oftentimes duplicates for people. Now, why do we want to get rid of those? Well, because the whole purpose of FamilySearch family tree is to have one person in the tree, one profile for each person, because we want their records attached to their person page. We don't want it split. And if the computer system is sending records to this one profile, but the family is looking at another profile, well, they might not get the whole story of their ancestor. And because of technological advances that we have, we can fix these things. It's easy. It's not that hard. Might feel a little scary at first, but I promise the more you do it, the easier it gets. And it helps us to make that record that's worthy of exception. That's our goal. Okay, so how do we clean up merging? Here's a couple of little rules to try to follow. Before you merge, be sure that the 2 records really are duplicates. In many families, the same names were used repeatedly among cousins and across generations. If you've ever done research in Scotland, you will see this because they all named their children after their fathers and mothers. And so you'd have 5 brothers who all named their first son after their father. And so you might have 5 cousins that all have the same exact name. So we just want to be careful because they might all live in the same town. So it may not be a duplicate. It may just be that they're relatives or just common names, same names. Also, this is something really important to remember. Sometimes we see in a family 2 children of the same name, and we automatically think, oh, this child is in the system twice. Well, a lot of times it is, that can be, but really up until like this past century, it was very common for cultures if a child died young, because family names were so important, that if a child died, they would name the next child that same name because it was so important for them to pass down that name. They didn't want that name to be lost. So just because you see 2 children in a family with the same name doesn't necessarily mean that it's a duplicate. So just look at it. If there's not a death date for one, see if you can find a death date, because that might clarify. It might actually be siblings with the same name, or it might be duplicates. So you just really have to look at the records to see. But we want to always check the vital information and relationships to make sure that they're really the same people before we merge. But if you see 2 people with the same name and the same birth dates and things like that, that's probably pretty certain that it's a duplicate. So how do we know? Okay, so again, this is something I like to do with paper. It just helps me keep it straight. But I also will open more than one tab on my computer. But step 1, we want to research all the people that we need to. So if we've got someone here that we need to merge, let's try to open, look at both pages and both sets of sources before we merge them. We want to write down their PID numbers, which means personal ID numbers. Everyone in FamilySearch has a 7-digit personal ID number, and we want to keep track of that. So then if we look at them and we're like, okay, this is definitely the same person, you want to use the profile page, the person page of the person you want to keep. And I usually do that off of the one that has the most relationships attached and the most records, if you can, because it's just easier to keep it cleaned up that way. And sometimes you want to click for possible duplicates if it's not showing all of them, because sometimes there's more than one possible duplicate, and it may give you an error for one, but if you click the possible duplicates, it might bring up others. And then the step 5 is that we're going to actually merge. So let's go through that. Okay, so again, on the right-hand side of a person page, this will let us know that there's a possible duplicate for Mary Rush. We see it gives us her name and her ID number there. Okay, so the search engine has suggested this possible duplicate. Now, if you click into the research help, it's going to bring up a bigger box that we can compare. So Mary Rush here at the top is the person that we were on her person page. Now it's going to bring up this window here, and we see the possible duplicate down below. Well, we can compare their dates. So at the top, that Mary Rush, it says her birthday is July 5th, 1814. And the bottom one, it just says the US. The bottom one says the 15th of July. So that's close. It's not exactly the same. And on one we have a state and one we don't. So we want to look at that. I mean, it's possible, but that's definitely not like, oh, that's a positive match. Okay, where it gets really good is when you have relationship matches, because if you have a person of the same name who's married to another person of the same name, or their parents are the same names, that's when we get a lot more confident that it is an actual duplicate. So in this case, we see that on both profiles, her spouse is listed as Smith Bates, which isn't that common of a name. So that also helps too. So that was an exact match. But then we have this other, we've got the parents. Well, on one, we've got her parents listed, and on the other ID, there's no parents. So we can't compare that, but just because there are no parents listed on one doesn't mean it's not a match. It may just be that someone put her into the system with her spouse and they didn't know her parents. So we need to consider that some of these duplicates are formed. Well, usually some people have some information and some have other information, and we just want to bring all that information together. Okay. So now let's just kind of look at it from her full page, right? Okay, so actually what we see, this is from a little bit different perspective. We see that this is actually her husband's person page. Sorry, I said that wrong. So, but under his person page, we have Mary Rush added twice. And it looks like the dates are pretty close. We've got the same birth and death year. Now we'd want to verify those dates, because what if he did have two wives named Mary and somebody just added one in as the other one? Well, we've got the children in under two separate families because we have two Mary Rushes. Well, it's looking more and more like maybe this is the same person, especially when we can, compare the relationships. But we can see that they're two different because they have different personal ID numbers. That's why there's two brackets where he has two separate wives listed here. So as we look at the children, we want to see if there's any records that will help us to decipher this. The rule of three is great if you can use that. If you have three pieces of information that help you that are the same, that helps us to make a good conclusion about if it is a duplicate. So like the same name, check. Same birth or close, check. Same death, check. Same spouse, check. There's no red flags, then we can feel pretty confident moving forward. But if you can look at records, if there's records, do that first. So with all three of the children, they were listed in the census together. And so we see that, wow, the mother, looks like we've got these two Mary Rushes, but the children's names all line up. And so that's one more piece of the puzzle. That's one more indication that it's just one family. So we're going to click to merge these. Now, the menu option has changed a little bit in FamilySearch. And I went in today to try to update these slides. And this is probably the first time this has ever happened. And I couldn't find a duplicate in my tree for as long as I looked. So it's changed a little bit. It doesn't look exactly like this, but it's still pretty close. But I think it may move to the right side now. But either way, just look at the screen. It's pretty similar. Just see what it's telling you. So basically, it puts the two people side by side. And like I said, we're going to merge from the page that we want to keep. So the one that's got the most relationships or the most records. So, and then the other person will be listed on the other side. But sometimes we'll want to bring over that information. So we saw that on one profile, there was one daughter. So we've got her down here, Rachel Bates. So we want to make sure we add her to the family. Well, sometimes that will even be another duplicate. And so sometimes people will wonder, well, should I bring it over? We've already got her there. Still bring it over, even if it's a duplicate, because it'll just make it much easier to then merge and clean her up. Because if we don't bring her over and she doesn't have any other parents there, then she's going to be kind of like left off dangling in the tree. We don't want anybody dangling. We want to make sure that everybody is where they need to be. Now, sometimes when you merge a person, sometimes people will have like multiple sets of parents, and you want to remove her from the extra parents and put her in the right parents. And you can do that through merging. So don't bring over the parent. If you've done the research and you're like, okay, this is not correct, but this one is. So bring over any relationships that you want to keep, but any that are not correct, just leave them on the right side, and the FamilySearch will do its thing, and it just separates those relationships. So just don't feel the need to you don't want to bring over anybody that doesn't belong, but you want to bring over anyone who does. We just add that. Okay, so like in this case, where there was the one set that had parents and one didn't, we definitely want to bring those parents over. And then we're going to continue the merge. And also, if there have been temple ordinance done for either of these people, all of them are going to come and it's going to put in the earliest date in the system. So this is a pretty basic one. However, it caused a common problem. In fact, I've gotten a lot of phone calls about this because this is, people are like, what do I do? Because it's still not all the way cleaned up. Okay, so we're going to walk through that. Might feel a little scary, but it's really not as hard as it seems. It's kind of, just have to dig into it. So what we're going to do is now we've got Smith, who has Mary Rush here and no wife here, and Rachel apparently now has no mother. So what do we want to do about that? So what we're going to do is we would just copy Rachel's personal ID number. We're just right click on it and copy it. And then just going back, we can see where you can click add child. We're going to do that. So then when it does that, instead of adding it by name, we want to click the by ID number because that's just the easiest way. And then we're going to, paste it into there and click next. Well, then it pulls Rachel up. So we've got her ID number. We've added it in. Now we're going to add her as a match. It brought her up. We're going to fix it. So, so great. So now we have Smith Bates and Mary Rush with their 3 children. We've still got to correct this at the bottom. We've got her in there, but she's in there twice as like 2 possible relationships. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to fix this relationship. So this is the right one, but we want to get rid of this one. We're not going to get rid of Rachel. We're just going to get rid of this extra relationship. And we're going to do that by clicking on this little gray pencil in the corner. So when we get in there, we're going to click remove or replace. And that's why people get afraid, because they're like, no, I don't want to remove her from the family. Well, you're not going to, because she's already in there once under this relationship. We're just basically removing the additional relationship. So when we do that, then we do this little, we have to check the box that says, I have reviewed the relationships, sources and notes, and we're going to click remove parents. Well, it's just going to remove the extra relationship. And by doing that, now we have one family that's all cleaned up and looks the way it's supposed to. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, add them to the box and we'll go over that. Okay, well, sometimes there's going to be a suggested merge that really shouldn't be merged yet. So why would that be? The computer algorithm is going through, it's looking for commonalities and things. And so, it does a really good job, but sometimes it does make suggestions that are incorrect. So that's why we want to review it first. So let's look at this one. It says we've got a possible duplicate for him. Okay. Well, this one just gives us a question mark. No dates, no places. I don't know why the computer is suggesting this. It could have been that this is an extra child added in under his parents. We don't know. But, and I think it's because this one, it's found a Maria Rush with a similar birth date and a similar death. However, it's not exactly the same. It's in a different county in Ohio. The first name's not even the same. So we couldn't say we know for sure that this is not them, but there's not really any sources. And due to the lack of information, we don't want to merge this because there is a possibility that this is 2 people. And if you're still on the fence about, oh, maybe this is different, then don't merge them. Don't merge them until you feel really confident. Okay, so so we want to leave that one. So we're going to put not a match. We're going to click not a match, and that's going to clean that up in the system. And we're just going to put in the reason that, the spouse, it's not a good match. And, sometimes I'll put like without more information, they don't appear to be a match this time. So but put in the reason. And then that helps the computer system to quit making suggestions that are maybe incorrect too. Now, this is one of my favorite things that I'm excited to teach you, is how to fix a bad merge, because this happens all the time. And this is really frustrating when it does, because it seems like I've seen this sometimes more than regular duplicates, that someone has merged someone with a similar name, and sometimes they'll be in completely different states. So all of a sudden my ancestor is missing from their spouse because someone has merged them with someone that's in a completely different state with a different family. And I can go in and say, this is not correct. But what do I do? Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is on their person page, we have to find this box on the right side, the latest changes. In fact, if you're on a person page and you see this parent-child relationship deleted, that's a good indication that there's probably been a merge that has happened. Then some of the relationships were not carried over like we talked about. So we're going to click on these drop-down menu and we are looking for the merge. So when we do that, it will, sorry, I need to go back. So when we do that, we'll see where there's a merge and we can select it. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this would be like in their changes. Well, I brought this up and I'm looking at the changes, and this is where I see, okay, this is where somebody merged them and it was two different people. So all you have to do is click unmerge, and it's pretty easy. And when we do that, it will just let us have an explanation box, and we just write why it's not correct, why it's not the same person. We put in a good reason, and it fixes it for us. So that's, we didn't get into some of the more difficult merges and things, but maybe that's something we can get into. But if you can start with most of them are going to look like that. And if you can just start practicing with those, then you get used to seeing what's common. You get used to determining how like to separate and what things, might validate it or make it reliable or unreliable. And it just takes experience and playing around with it. And so that would be my suggestion, is just dig in and do it. Like, try not to be afraid. If you make a mistake, you can fix it. And let's try not to think of the cleaning up as dreaded tasks, but instead think about what it actually is. They are untapped opportunities for you to be the one to make important discoveries, which is where it gets so fun. By cleaning up the tree or a person page, we're enabling the computer system to do its job more effectively, and that opens the door to new record hits. Why is that so cool? Because new records often mean cool new information about your ancestors that you didn't know, answered questions, maybe it'll solve mysteries, and family members that have never been added to the family in the tree, on the family tree. And when you can add a family member to the tree that's never been there, that's such a great feeling. It really is. It's just amazing to find a long lost family member and add them in, and just brings so much joy from making those discoveries. So these are the experiences that we want you to have. And that I know that the Lord wants us all to have, because there really is just so much joy there. And so it's just so fun. So how do we get better at this? Well, we practice. Like I said, we have to do it. We learn by doing. There's a couple of ways to find these errors if you want to get in there and practice. One is by going into the tree and going back, like, let's say late 1700s, it's a little bit earlier, but and then click on descendancy view, and that's going to bring up a whole list of people. And then you can see on the right, you can find these little errors. And let's say you just start with one task, like you want to fix standardizing places and locations. That's probably the best place to start. Then you can work on those, all of those that you go down the list, and any that you find like that, then fix those. Oh, and one thing, I think I had it on the slide, I did add that in, but I forgot to mention, is make sure that when you standardize a place, that you look up the jurisdiction for the time. I mean, I touched on it, but remember that, like on that one that was like British colonial, the United States didn't exist until 1776. Great Britain didn't exist until 1801. So, if you have a record in Scotland for 1750, it should say Scotland. It shouldn't say Scotland, Great Britain, or Scotland, United Kingdom, because it didn't exist. And we want the system to look for records within its own time period, and that's how it's going to do that. So, and if you don't know what the jurisdiction was for that time, a quick Google search will help you find the answer. So you can just put in the town or the county, put the date, and just, like find out what the jurisdiction was for that time and put that location in that way. Another way is by using the landscape view in the family tree and just going through. So you can see how, like, just going through, I see these red errors. And this is where at the top left-hand corner, you can always like change the view of the tree. But when I'm in there, see I can just click on these little red exclamation points and it will tell me what the problem is. Now, if I don't know how to fix someone who it says they were born after they were married, if I'm not ready for that, then just skip over that one, go to one that you're more comfortable with. Well, okay, so I think that's pretty much it for tonight. Hopefully you've all learned something that you can put to practice about cleaning up your tree. And thanks for all those who could be here tonight. We really appreciate it. And make sure that you put the next class on your calendar. We're planning for June 17th. That's a Thursday night, I believe. And we'll have more details to come on that about the class. So if you follow us on Facebook, that would be great. Salem Family History Center. We'll put, the class details on there soon. And we'll do one in July, planning for July 15th. We'll just do one for the summer months since it's so busy. And then maybe we'll pick up a little bit more in the fall. But thanks again for those who could be here. We appreciate your support and look forward to being able to learn and do these better each time, we hope, so that we can offer some things that you can use. And anyway, so thanks again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next month. See you later. Bye.